Hi guys, welcome to K Stories. Today I'm bringing you a recap of an amazing Korean drama. But before we dive in, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Park Sae-ro-yi was once a troublesome student, so his teachers often punished him by making him hold a bucket of water above his head. Yet deep inside, he was a kind and decent boy, unlike Jang Geun-won, a cruel troublemaker who loved to bully other classmates. Soo-ah came from a wealthy family, the daughter of a powerful businessman, so nobody dared to mess with her or the people close to her. One day, Sae-ro-yi saw an unfair scene in class and immediately stepped in to help. But Soo-ah quickly stopped him, saying, "Don't touch him. If you offend that guy, your family could be in danger." Even with her warning, Sae-ro-yi still stood up to Geun-won and lectured him in front of everyone. Geun-won, embarrassed in front of his friends, grew angrier and continued picking on others just to prove himself. He challenged Sae-ro-yi to a fight. When they were about to start, a teacher came in, but Geun-won ignored him and kept bullying the boy. The teacher, afraid of the rich family's power, pretended not to see anything. Seeing that, Geun-won became even more arrogant and kept provoking Sae-ro-yi. Unable to hold back, Sae-ro-yi punched him, unaware that this small moment would bring huge trouble to his family. Sae-ro-yi's father worked at Jangga Group, which belonged to Geun-won's father, Chairman Jang Dae-hee. After the fight, Sae-ro-yi's father was called to the company. At school, Sae-ro-yi was beaten by the vice principal while Geun-won watched proudly. The principal even bowed his head to apologize to Geun-won. Then Chairman Jang arrived with Sae-ro-yi's father. At first, he spoke kindly, saying he respected the man's long service and didn't want to expel Sae-ro-yi. But then he demanded that Sae-ro-yi kneel and apologize to his son. Sae-ro-yi, proud and stubborn, refused. "My father taught me not to lose my pride," he said firmly. Hearing this, Dae-hee's face darkened. To his surprise, Sae-ro-yi's father smiled and said he was proud to have such an honest son. Geun-won whispered something to his father, making Dae-hee furious. In anger, he immediately fired Sae-ro-yi's father from the company. Sae-ro-yi was heartbroken and clenched his fists, but he couldn't do anything. That night, father and son shared a drink together. His father told him he was proud of him for being upright. "As long as we live with honesty, we'll have nothing to regret," he said with a smile. They laughed together, not knowing tragedy was near. The next day, a notice appeared at school. Sae-ro-yi had been expelled. His father had also lost his job. With the little savings left, his father opened a small restaurant in Itaewon. Soo-ah often came to eat there and chat with them. But misfortune soon struck again. Geun-won, who also liked Soo-ah, tried to flirt with her, but she ignored him because she cared for Sae-ro-yi. Enraged and humiliated, Geun-won looked for revenge. One day, while Sae-ro-yi's father was delivering food on his motorbike, Geun-won, driving his car, deliberately hit him from behind. The crash sent him tumbling down the hill and he died instantly. Sae-ro-yi lost the only family he had. Broken with grief, Sae-ro-yi couldn't believe what had happened. Soon the police arrived and said the other side wanted to settle peacefully. To him, that was an insult to his father's life. While helping pick up some fallen papers, Soo-ah noticed a photo of Geun-won's car. The license plate matched the one from the accident. It was clear the police and the rich family had arranged for another man to take the blame. Filled with rage, Sae-ro-yi went looking for Geun-won. That night, in the rain, he found him outside the hospital. Geun-won froze in fear and fell to the ground. Sae-ro-yi's anger exploded. He hit Geun-won again and again, pouring out all his pain. His father had meant the world to him, and this man had destroyed everything. Sae-ro-yi kept beating him until Geun-won passed out. Just as Sae-ro-yi lifted a rock to strike again, Soo-ah arrived with the police. They pointed their guns and shouted for him to stop. When he didn't, one officer aimed his weapon. At that moment, Soo-ah stepped between them and begged Sae-ro-yi to stop, saying his father wouldn't want this. Thinking of his father, Sae-ro-yi finally calmed and dropped the stone. He was taken away by the police. Later, Chairman Jang came to visit him in prison and said he would forgive everything if Sae-ro-yi bowed and apologized. Sae-ro-yi refused again, saying, "The one who should apologize is your son." Furious, Dae-hee warned him coldly, "Let's see how miserable I can make your life." Through his lawyer, Dae-hee found out that Soo-ah was close to Sae-ro-yi. He invited her to his home, knowing she didn't have money for school, and offered to pay her in exchange for helping his son. Soo-ah asked in a cold tone, how much would he give? And Dae-hee laughed.
Meanwhile, Geun-won, feeling guilty, told his father he wanted to turn himself in, but Dae-hee refused, saying that a man who would inherit his company must never have a criminal record. To make him tougher, he took him to a farm, caught a chicken, and forced him to kill it, teaching him to be ruthless. Geun-won obeyed while his father laughed cruelly. The next day, Sae-ro-yi's trial was held. The court sentenced him to 3 years in prison for assault, even though everyone knew the truth had been twisted. The police officer who knew the real story stayed silent because his superiors had been bribed. On Sae-ro-yi's first day in prison, older inmates tried to make him kneel, but he laughed in their faces. It turned out Chairman Jang had arranged for them to bully him. A few days later, Soo-ah visited him. Seeing his bruised face, she felt guilty and confessed, "I betrayed you from money to study." But Sae-ro-yi didn't blame her. Before she left, he told her that he liked her and would find her after his release. Soo-ah said she hoped he would become rich and strong enough to take revenge. They parted with that promise. From then on, Sae-ro-yi never forgot his hatred for Jangga Group. 3 years passed quickly. When he was finally free, he went to the pub where his father used to drink and swore that he would one day take revenge. After that, he began collecting all information about Jangga Group and its chairman's family. Following the address in Soo-ah's letter, Sae-ro-yi went to Itaewon Street, which was lively with a festival that day. While standing there in awe, Soo-ah suddenly appeared and hugged him tightly. He was shocked, but happy. She took him out for drinks and told him she was now working for Jangga Group. Sae-ro-yi didn't blame her and said he planned to work on a ship for 7 years. Hearing that, Soo-ah looked disappointed. The next day, Sae-ro-yi started his new job on an ocean liner. 7 years later, Soo-ah had become successful at Jangga Group and earned the chairman's trust. Jang Geun-soo liked her for years, but she never accepted him because she still loved Sae-ro-yi. After work, she often went to Itaewon Street, remembering their old promise. 7 years later, the two met again. Soo-ah was amazed when she saw that Sae-ro-yi had kept his promise. He had opened his own restaurant named DanBam. On its first day, everyone was excited, but no customers came in. The high rent in Itaewon worried him deeply. Nearby, a group of schoolgirls bullied another girl. Unfortunately for them, she was Jo Yi-seo, a stubborn and fearless student. Yi-seo pulled out her phone and live-streamed the whole scene online. The video went viral and she became famous overnight. But because of that, one of the girl's mothers came to confront her and even tried to hit her. Yi-seo's friend recorded the scene and Yi-seo boldly stood her ground, scaring the woman. When the woman tried to slap her, Sae-ro-yi stepped in to stop it. Yi-seo took the chance to slap the woman back. Sae-ro-yi didn't know what had happened and told Yi-seo to apologize. Yi-seo lied and said, "My father died because of her." When he looked away, she stuck out her tongue and called him an idiot. Yi-seo had a bold and mischievous nature, just like Sae-ro-yi. She often annoyed her teachers, but no one could really control her. At Jangga Group, Jang Geun-won suggested opening a bar in Itaewon. Soo-ah objected, and the chairman, angry that the branch had been losing money, tore up the report and slapped his son. He then gave all the Itaewon stores to Soo-ah to manage. That same day, Geun-soo and Yi-seo rode a motorbike to Itaewon for fun. They almost hit some people and had to brake suddenly, throwing Yi-seo off balance. At that moment, Sae-ro-yi was nearby handing out flyers. He rushed over to help her and recognized her as the same stubborn girl from before.
Yi-seo's friend ran over to check on her, but Yi-seo jokingly hit him on the head.
Sae-ro-yi was about to scold her, but suddenly fainted from exhaustion. Yi-seo and her friend rushed him to the hospital, where doctors said he had collapsed due to overwork. Meanwhile, Chairman Jang found out that Sae-ro-yi had opened a restaurant in Itaewon and told Soo-ah to cause him trouble. Torn between feelings and duty, Soo-ah agreed. That night, Sae-ro-yi woke up. Yi-seo criticized his old-fashioned way of handing out flyers and showed him how to promote on social media to attract more customers. He thanked her for the advice and left. Later that evening, Yi-seo and her friend visited the Jangga restaurant nearby. It was crowded and busy, unlike the quiet DanBam across the street.
Soo-ah soon discovered that the two customers were under 18, so she ordered them to leave. Yi-seo and her friends decided to go across the street to DanBam, the small restaurant owned by Park Sae-ro-yi. Since the place was empty, he allowed them to stay even though he knew they were minors. As they sat down, Yi-seo noticed right away why the restaurant had no customers. The place looked dull and uninviting. Meanwhile, Sae-ro-yi went for a walk to see how nearby restaurants attracted people. On the way, he ran into Soo-ah and told her he couldn't figure out why his business had no visitors, even after 2 months of hard work. When Soo-ah arrived at DanBam, she realized Yi-seo's group wasn't of legal age, so she secretly called the police. Inside, Yi-seo's friend started acting rude toward one of the staff. Sae-ro-yi quickly defended his worker and scolded the drunk customer, telling him to behave. The man, completely drunk, insulted Sae-ro-yi and grabbed him by the collar, trying to start a fight. But before he could throw a punch, one of Sae-ro-yi's employees stepped in, blocked the blow, and struck him back, knocking him out.
Then, in anger, the employee poured boiling soup on his foot, revealing that he used to be a gangster. Right then, the police arrived, saying someone had reported that minors were being served alcohol. Everyone was taken to the police station, and as a result, the restaurant was ordered to shut down for 2 months. Sae-ro-yi was furious and argued with the officers, but it didn't help. Not long after, Jang Geun-won appeared. He was there to help his younger brother as ordered by his father, Chairman Jang. When he saw Sae-ro-yi in trouble, he laughed arrogantly, which made Sae-ro-yi even angrier. The police, noticing who Geun-won was, decided to ignore his behavior. But Sae-ro-yi stopped them and demanded fairness, asking why they treated the rich differently. He said everyone should be equal in front of the law. After saying that, he turned and left. Yi-seo ran after him, shouting that he'd gone crazy. Closing for 2 months meant losing everything. She scolded him for being too stubborn and not knowing when to bow his head. Sae-ro-yi replied that she was just a reckless troublemaker. The two argued back and forth. Soon after, Geun-won approached again and began to provoke Sae-ro-yi by talking about how he had killed his father years ago. He wanted Sae-ro-yi to lose control and attack him. But this time, Sae-ro-yi managed to stay calm and didn't fall for it. Geun-won kept bragging, but Sae-ro-yi simply said he would reopen the case and make him pay for what he did. Hearing this, Geun-won was shaken, while Yi-seo, who had overheard everything, started admiring Sae-ro-yi's courage. From that day, she decided to help him in every possible way. Because of the earlier fight, Yi-seo and Gun-soo were punished at school. They had to run laps and write 100 self-reflection essays. Yi-seo didn't bother writing one. Instead, she drew a portrait of Sae-ro-yi. She couldn't stop thinking about him. Out of curiosity, she went online to read about his past and the case involving Jangga Group. Every day after that, she passed by his closed restaurant, quietly watching. A week later, it was New Year's Eve. While everyone was celebrating, Yi-seo went into a bar to show off her new ID card. She had finally turned 18. Even as she drank with her friends, she wasn't happy. Her mind was filled only with thoughts of Sae-ro-yi, the man who had stood up for her that day. Meanwhile, Sae-ro-yi met Soo-ah at a small bar. He didn't know she was the one who had reported him to the police, causing his restaurant to close for 2 months. They had drinks together, and Sae-ro-yi nearly confessed his feelings for her. Later that night, Yi-seo left the bar to go home. One of the drunk men she had been drinking with followed her and tried to harass her. When she pushed him away, he became violent and tried to attack her. Yi-seo fought back, throwing money at him and shouting for him to leave. But he hit her and chased her through the streets. Terrified, she ran into a narrow alley and stumbled into a men's restroom where she unexpectedly ran into Sae-ro-yi. Embarrassed, he turned away, but Yi-seo felt relieved to see him. The drunk man came in, pretending to be her boyfriend, and tried to pull her out. Seeing Yi-seo's bruised face, Sae-ro-yi realized something was wrong. When she asked for help, he immediately stepped forward and fought the man, knocking him down. Afterwards, they both ran out together and happened to bump into Soo-ah. The three of them ran through the street until they were safe. Yi-seo started laughing. She said it was the first time she had so much fun running away. Seeing Sae-ro-yi caring for Yi-seo made Soo-ah feel jealous. When they finally stopped, Yi-seo invited Sae-ro-yi for a drink to thank him for helping her. She also offered to promote his restaurant on her social media. While Sae-ro-yi went to get some water, Yi-seo and Soo-ah were left alone. The conversation quickly turned cold and tense.
Soo-ah confidently said that Sae-ro-yi had liked her for 10 years. Yi-seo replied without hesitation that she liked him. Their words clashed, and the air grew thick with jealousy. Soo-ah then mentioned that Yi-seo was the reason Sae-ro-yi's restaurant got shut down. Yi-seo was shocked and asked if Soo-ah had been the one who called the police. Soo-ah's silence gave her the answer. Yi-seo glared at her, realizing she had betrayed Sae-ro-yi. Soo-ah admitted it and proudly said that even so, Sae-ro-yi would always care for her more than anyone else. When Sae-ro-yi returned with the water, Soo-ah quickly told him the truth, that she had been the one who reported him. She said she believed he liked her enough to forgive her, but Sae-ro-yi only said he was disappointed. Feeling embarrassed, Soo-ah left first. Yi-seo and Sae-ro-yi stayed behind and continued drinking together. During their talk, Yi-seo pointed to everything wrong with his restaurant, from poor decoration to staff behavior and an unclear menu. As Sae-ro-yi got drunk, he opened up about his dreams and struggles. Yi-seo listened carefully, and her feelings for him grew even stronger. After some time, Sae-ro-yi tried to stand but fell to the ground. Without realizing it, Yi-seo had completely fallen for him. She helped him up and, in a sudden moment, kissed him. The next morning, Sae-ro-yi woke up in the hospital with no memory of what happened the night before. Meanwhile, Yi-seo told her mother that she had feelings for someone. She said, "He's had a hard life and carries a lot of pain, but for some reason, I can't stop thinking about him." Her mother warned her not to get involved. Yi-seo was unsure what to do, so she flipped a coin. If it landed on heads, she would stop liking him.
It landed on heads, but she pretended it was tails. Laughing to herself, she ran straight to Sae-ro-yi's restaurant, and the moment she saw him, she knew her feelings hadn't changed. Yi-seo then decided to become the manager of DanBam to help Sae-ro-yi achieve his dream. Around the same time, Jang Geun-soo, the chairman's other son, also came to work there. He had been treated unfairly by his family because he was born to another woman. His mother had abandoned him, and his father, furious, had kicked him out. After meeting Sae-ro-yi, who treated him kindly, Geun-soo wanted to work under him. The restaurant now had 5 staff members. At first, Sae-ro-yi said they didn't need a manager, but Yi-seo pointed out the real problems. She said, "The staff handle food carelessly. Customers will think it's unhygienic. The menu has no signature dish, and the restaurant doesn't have a photo spot for visitors." She also mentioned that the food presentation looked plain. After listening, Sae-ro-yi was impressed and immediately made her the manager. At the same time, Chairman Jang learned that a female director at Jangga Group had been buying a large amount of company shares. He became worried that she might take control of the company, so he called her in for a private meeting. Back at DanBam, Yi-seo began remodeling the restaurant. She tore down a few walls to make the space bigger and used her design skills to decorate it. When the reopening day came, she promoted it through her famous social media accounts. Thanks to her efforts, DanBam was packed with customers, and long lines formed outside. Everyone was busy, but happy. Soo-ah saw the success and grew upset, while Sae-ro-yi proudly smiled at Yi-seo's hard work. That day, the restaurant earned more than 3 million won, their highest revenue so far. The next day, Chairman Jang and Soo-ah visited Itaewon to inspect the area. Dae-hee told Soo-ah that he wanted her to marry his son, Geun-won, but she ignored the suggestion. Then he took her to DanBam and saw how popular it had become. Annoyed, he ordered her to find a way to ruin it. A few days later, DanBam remained crowded as ever. Because the chef was on leave, Sae-ro-yi had to cook himself. Everything went smoothly until customers started complaining the next day. One found hair in their food and another said the dishes tasted bland. The chef, My Honey, had been careless, and Yi-seo was furious. She demanded that Sae-ro-yi fire her to protect the restaurant's reputation. Instead, Sae-ro-yi called her in and said he trusted her. He doubled her salary and asked her to do her best. Then he gathered the whole team and gave a speech about working together. Everyone was touched by his kindness, except Yi-seo, who felt slightly hurt that he didn't take her advice. The next morning, Yi-seo met some of her old classmates, the same people who used to bully her. They tried to mock her again, but Geun-soo showed up and defended her. During the argument, one of the girls accidentally revealed that Yi-seo herself had been the one who called the police about the underage drinking incident, not Soo-ah. Shocked and angry, Yi-seo slapped her friend. When another girl tried to fight back, she slapped her too. The rest of the bullies backed off, realizing how strong she had become. In the following days, Yi-seo kept checking on Honey's cooking and helped her improve. Thanks to teamwork and Sae-ro-yi's leadership, DanBam returned to success once again. Meanwhile, Soo-ah sat drinking alone, thinking about Chairman Jang's words, asking her to choose a side. The thought made her sad, and she kept drinking until she was drunk. On her way home, she ran into Sae-ro-yi and his team. Seeing that it was a personal moment, everyone else left, leaving only Yi-seo behind. In her drunken state, Soo-ah confessed her true feelings to Sae-ro-yi, her teary eyes showing how much she still loved him.
The mood suddenly turned romantic as the two were about to kiss in front of Isa, but just before their lips met, she rushed forward, covered Soo-ah's mouth with her hand, and pushed her away. She didn't want anyone else touching Sae-ro-yi's lips. Soo-ah felt embarrassed and instantly came to her senses. Still wanting to tease Isa, she insisted on joining Sae-ro-yi and his friends for dinner. Sae-ro-yi couldn't refuse and agreed, making the whole group's atmosphere tense, especially for Isa. During the meal, Soo-ah explained that Jangga Group's success came from running as a restaurant chain and that the chairman himself had created the original recipes, helping the brand grow. Hearing this, Sae-ro-yi spoke about his dream to turn DanBam into a large franchise, even larger than Jangga. Everyone became excited and raised their glasses to toast his ambition. After a few drinks, Soo-ah and Isa met in the restroom and had another heated conversation. Isa confessed that she had oppositional defiant disorder and admitted she liked Sae-ro-yi deeply. She warned that if anyone stood in her way, she would do anything to defeat them. Surprisingly, Soo-ah was just as bold, saying that if they both loved him, they would fight until the end. Meanwhile, at Jangga Group headquarters, Soo-ah reported that DanBam was becoming successful and crowded under Iset's management. The chairman discovered that Iset had a remarkably high IQ of 162. Soo-ah also revealed that Sae-ro-yi planned to turn DanBam into a large franchise. Hearing this, the chairman grew worried, fearing DanBam could become a real threat to Jangga. DanBam continued to thrive, and Isat decided to hire more employees to prepare for expansion. Instead of taking a salary, she asked for a 20% commission. Her mother soon found out that she had dropped out of college to work at a bar and became furious. Isak tried to explain that she admired Sae-ro-yi and wanted to fight for success, even if she failed. The two argued emotionally, and after failing to agree, Isak said goodbye, picked up her bag, and left home. As she stood sadly on a bridge, Sae-ro-yi happened to pass by and stopped. He already knew that her mother had thrown her out because she worked with him. Feeling both sorry and grateful, he tried to comfort her in his gentle, awkward way, which made her smile. They promised each other that they would turn DanBam into a franchise chain strong enough to surpass Jangga Group. The two stood on the bridge talking about their dreams until sunrise. As the restaurant expanded quickly, it needed more staff, but most applicants who came for interviews weren't qualified. Then, a pretty girl arrived, making the team, even Sae-ro-yi, happy. But Isat, feeling jealous, refused to hire her, upsetting the others. Later, a black man named Tony came to apply. He was Ghanaian Korean, and Isat immediately accepted him, believing his mixed background would be great for DanBam's image. Determined to grow the business further, Sae-ro-yi contacted a TV station and requested an interview about DanBam. To his surprise, the station agreed, and he excitedly shared the news with Soo-ah. They went for a walk and talked happily together. When Geun-won saw them, jealousy filled him, and he reported everything to his father. The chairman, already cautious of Sae-ro-yi's determination, ordered a plan to ruin DanBam's reputation. The next day, when Sae-ro-yi went to the TV station to finalize the script, he ran into Geun-won, who used his influence to cancel the program. Sae-ro-yi quickly realized that Soo-ah must have told him. Geun-won smirked, saying he would make Sae-ro-yi fail, but Sae-ro-yi coldly replied that he would make Jangga fall. After the cancellation, Sae-ro-yi felt defeated, but Isat stayed beside him, comforting and motivating him. As they walked together, they ran into Soo-ah, whom Sae-ro-yi ignored, breaking her heart. Later, Isat told him that Soo-ah wasn't the one who had called the police before. Realizing his mistake, he ran to find her and apologize.
He found her waiting at a bus stop, held her hand, and promised to take down Jangga so she would never suffer again. When the bus arrived, they parted ways. After Soo-ah left, Sae-ro-yi called his business partner who was monitoring Jangga's stocks. The associate told him that his holdings had now reached over 10 billion won. Sae-ro-yi ordered him to buy all the remaining Jangga shares. Shocked, the assistant informed the chairman that Sae-ro-yi had become the third largest shareholder in Jangga Group. It turned out Sae-ro-yi had purchased shares 8 years earlier, during Geun-won's scandal when prices were at their lowest. The chairman was stunned and laughed bitterly, realizing Sae-ro-yi had been planning this all along. Soon after, the chairman went to DanBam to meet him face-to-face. He had always thought of Sae-ro-yi as a naive boy, but now he saw him as a clever and dangerous rival. 8 years ago, Sae-ro-yi had used his father's insurance money to buy stocks in the same company responsible for his father's death. Sae-ro-yi greeted him politely and asked his chef to prepare their best food, personally serving it. The chairman asked directly why he had bought so many Jangga shares. Everyone was silent, shocked by how wealthy Sae-ro-yi had become. He only smiled and said he saw great potential in the company. During the meal, the chairman brought up Sae-ro-yi's late father and warned him to stop fighting powerful people, saying it would only lead to misery. Sae-ro-yi's calm expression changed, and he declared that he would take revenge and make both the chairman and his son pay for their crimes. His fierce words filled the room with tension. The chairman, enraged, vowed to crush him completely, but Sae-ro-yi said this was just the beginning, his first step toward taking over Jangga Group. His secret weapon was his old friend, Ho-jin, the same boy he had once protected from Geun-won's bullying. Ho-jin, now a finance expert, had quietly managed Sae-ro-yi's assets since his prison days, turning a small 100 million won investment into a huge fortune. A few days earlier, they had met with Jangga's female director, proposing an alliance to dethrone the chairman. Impressed by Sae-ro-yi's determination and out of respect for his late father, she agreed to help on the condition that her shares would surpass the chairman's. They shook hands, sealing their deal. Later, the director visited the chairman and played chess with him. She suggested he choose a capable successor instead of stubbornly passing the company to his son. After she left, Secretary Kim showed him photos proving that she and Sae-ro-yi were working together. Furious, the chairman began planning his counterattack.
Meanwhile, Lee-seo admired Sae-ro-yi even more after learning about his clever strategy. Gun-soo became curious about his boss's past and asked Lee-seo about it, but she didn't know everything. He went home to question his father, who exploded in anger, calling him useless for working with his enemy. Humiliated, Gun-soo left and later met Lee-seo to confess that he truly liked her. Lee-seo smiled and said she would give him a chance only if he could take the company away from his father. Her words left him speechless. When they returned, they found Sae-ro-yi packing his bag to leave. Without hesitation, Lee-seo dropped everything and followed him, insisting on staying by his side. Amused by her determination, Sae-ro-yi agreed and they took a bus to the countryside together. On the way, Sae-ro-yi shared stories of his hard life. When they arrived, they visited the retired police officer who had investigated his father's death years ago. The man admitted he knew the truth, but couldn't act because his superiors were bribed. He had since quit and lived quietly with his wife. Feeling guilty, the man knelt before Sae-ro-yi and apologized, saying he would give his wife if needed. He explained that he had stayed silent to protect his young daughter. Sae-ro-yi didn't blame him and told him to live bravely from now on. That night, heavy rain fell, and Sae-ro-yi and Lee-seo stayed at the man's house. Lee-seo said that if the officer testified, Geun-won would go to jail and the chairman would lose control of the company. Seeing Sae-ro-yi's scars, Lee-seo realized how much pain he had endured and loved him even more, silently vowing to protect him for life. The next morning, bad news struck. The landlord announced that the building had been sold and the rent was going up with only 6 months left on their lease. When Sae-ro-yi called the new owner, he was shocked to learn it was the chairman himself, once again playing with his life. Lee-seo found out and confronted Soo-ah angrily, demanding she step in to stop him. Sae-ro-yi went directly to face the chairman, humbling himself to plead for leniency. The heartless man smirked and said he would buy every place Sae-ro-yi rented just to ruin him. Even so, Sae-ro-yi stayed calm and asked what he truly wanted. The chairman said he wanted Sae-ro-yi to kneel and apologize. Clenching his fists, Sae-ro-yi declared, "The more you hurt me, the stronger I'll become." Then, he boldly declared war and walked out coldly. Outside, he ran into Soo-ah, who already knew what had happened, and she immediately went to beg the chairman to withdraw his decision.
The chairman grew furious and immediately threw Soo-ah out. Since the restaurant was about to close, the team decided to go out for drinks. As they left, Gun-soo apologized to Sae-ro-yi for all the problems caused by his family, but Sae-ro-yi didn't blame him and stayed kind-hearted. Later, the others went to a club to dance, but Tony was denied entry because the club banned Africans. Tony insisted he was Korean, yet the guards still refused him. Lee-seo angrily snapped that no one would believe what the black guy said, and Tony walked away, hurt and upset. The next morning, graffiti covered the club's walls, calling them racists, leaving everyone speechless. Gun-soo told Lee-seo that he planned to quit working, as his father had ordered, to beg for the lease to be renewed. Lee-seo was deeply grateful when she heard that, and Gun-soo resigned, thinking it would stop Jangga from harassing DanBam. But Sae-ro-yi disagreed. He didn't want anyone to sacrifice themselves for him. When Lee-seo argued fiercely in defense of Gun-soo, Sae-ro-yi suddenly pulled off her manager badge and shouted that she was too cold-hearted to lead. Lee-seo, who had devoted everything to the restaurant, argued back. Sae-ro-yi raised his voice, saying he would never trade emotions for gain. Lee-seo declared that she had given up her whole life for him, and even if he fired her, she would still act as DanBam's manager. Her words left Sae-ro-yi speechless. He then decided to buy a house in Itaewon so the staff could live and work together. Seeing how much Sae-ro-yi valued gratitude, Lee-seo's view changed. She began to understand empathy instead of pure logic. She quickly went to apologize to Gun-soo. Taking the moment, Gun-soo confessed his love for her, but Lee-seo admitted she only liked Sae-ro-yi. Soon after, Lee-seo wrote a post exposing the club's racism, which went viral and gained massive support. She warned that if anyone hurt Sae-ro-yi, she would destroy them all. After reading her post, Tony returned, and Lee-seo promised to help him get Korean citizenship. Seeing Lee-seo become softer and more caring, everyone was happy. Sae-ro-yi gave her badge back and told her he was proud of her, while Gun-soo quietly felt heartbroken. Around the same time, the secretary informed Chairman Jang that Sae-ro-yi had bought a house in Itaewon, which made him panic because Jangga's stock had soared.
Sae-ro-yi ordered all his Jangga shares sold for a huge profit, avoiding being trapped by the chairman's schemes, and purchased a large home in Itaewon. While the team was renovating the new place, an old woman warned Sae-ro-yi the building was cursed. Every previous owner had gone bankrupt. Everyone felt uneasy. To promote the new restaurant, Yi-seo went live on social media, making DanBam even more famous. Dae-hee soon realized Yi-seo was the real key to Sae-ro-yi's rise. Cunningly, he invited her to his house and brought her to Jangga's press event. When he spoke about the company's success, Yi-seo raised her hand and asked if any brand could surpass Jangga. Dae-hee snapped that as long as he was alive, that would never happen. Her daring question left a strong impression. As she was leaving, the secretary led her to a private room where Dae-hee personally took her to a luxury restaurant. Knowing her IQ was 162 and her talent rare, he offered her a position at Jangga with a salary 10 times higher than her current one. Yi-seo politely refused, saying she would only consider it after making DanBam a powerhouse. Dae-hee was amused and intrigued. Meanwhile, Sae-ro-yi stayed at Lee Ho-jin's home, struggling with tax problems caused by their expansion. Ho-jin suggested forming a joint stock company. The group agreed to name their new chain Itaewon Class, shortened to IC. At that moment, the retired officer from Sae-ro-yi's case arrived with his daughter. He let the girl sit inside while he talked outside with Sae-ro-yi. The child spotted a cat, ran after it, and got lost. Everyone searched anxiously until Min-jung found her and lent her a phone to call her father. When the officer and Sae-ro-yi came to get her, the officer noticed someone tailing them. He spun, grabbed the man, and seized his camera. The stalker had been secretly taking photos of Min-jung on Dae-hee's orders, showing how cautious the chairman had become. When Dae-hee saw the Itaewon Class advertisement, he realized Yi-seo was truly a formidable rival.
Now he feared both Sae-ro-yi and Yi-seo. The secretary admitted the surveillance had been discovered, but Dae-hee remained calm, saying to ignore Min-jung for now and focus on luring Yi-seo to Jangga. Soo-ah was shocked to hear it. The secretary also revealed that the ex-officer was supplying food to Sae-ro-yi, so Dae-hee ordered him to be bribed. That night, Sae-ro-yi met Soo-ah for drinks in a romantic mood and confessed that he liked her. The next morning, Yi-seo told him bluntly that if he started dating Soo-ah, she would quit. Meanwhile, Dae-hee summoned the former officer to his mansion and tried to bribe him into leaving Sae-ro-yi to sign an exclusive deal with Jangga. But the officer, having learned from his past mistakes, wanted to be a better father and role model. Even with a huge offer, he refused, saying he believed DanBam would one day surpass Jangga. Dae-hee threatened him, saying that standing against him meant death. Thinking his daughter might be in danger, the officer grabbed Dae-hee's hand and warned he had been the lead investigator on the case 10 years ago, and if anything happened to his family, he would reopen it. Dae-hee was shaken. Soon after, Geun-won approached Yi-seo and publicly invited her to join Jangga, offering the marketing director job with a monthly salary of 25 million won, 50 times what she earned. Yi-seo was stunned but quickly outsmarted him. Pretending to accept, she flattered him until he boasted about the hit-and-run accident that killed Sae-ro-yi's father 10 years earlier. Foolishly, Geun-won revealed everything and Yi-seo secretly recorded it. When he realized he'd been tricked, Geun-won tried to grab her phone and raised his hand to strike, but she splashed hot coffee in his face. Yi-seo shouted that anyone who dared harm Sae-ro-yi would pay the price. Geun-won chased her, caught her, and slapped her, demanding the phone. Yi-seo screamed for help, but the crowd only picked up the cash he threw in the air. Just as he was about to get the phone, Sae-ro-yi arrived. Seeing Yi-seo's bruised face, he exploded with rage and was about to punch Geun-won, but Yi-seo stopped him just in time to keep him from falling into a trap. The police soon arrived and arrested Geun-won. Relieved and thankful, Yi-seo hugged Sae-ro-yi tightly, feeling genuine happiness for the first time despite the pain. She then uploaded the recording online, sparking public outrage. Jangga's stock crashed, and an enraged Dae-hee beat his reckless son. Terrified, Geun-won hid away. Witnessing everything, Min-jung realized she could no longer serve such corruption and went to meet Sae-ro-yi. Yi-seo told him that with the stock collapsing and shareholders in chaos, now was the time to strike Dae-hee, but they still needed the former officer to testify that Geun-won killed Sae-ro-yi's father 10 years ago. The next morning, they went to the officer's house, but found it empty. He had left ashamed and desperate. Min-jung found his daughter sitting alone, who had learned about her father's failure a decade ago. Moved by their pain, Sae-ro-yi decided to delay asking for testimony. Back at IC, Yi-seo explained the second condition to defeat Dae-hee: force him to defend Bun-won publicly even when he was wrong. Meanwhile, Dae-hee met with lawyers to plan his counterattack. Soo-ah advised him to send Geun-won to prison to save the company and warned that if Min-jung defected, he'd lose control. Her advice made sense, but Dae-hee refused, saying he would rather give up the company than abandon his son. Soo-ah informed Min-jung and Sae-ro-yi, who believed things were going well. Min-jung then called a board meeting to propose removing Dae-hee for letting his emotions endanger the firm, unaware she was walking into a trap. The next morning, during the shareholder vote to remove him, Dae-hee shocked everyone by confessing the full story and agreeing to send his son to jail to save Jangga. Overturning the vote, Min-jung realized she had been deceived. At the same time, the chairman's driver took Geun-won to surrender, but he fled and crashed the press conference, realizing his father had betrayed him to stay in power. The devastated son shed tears, while Dae-hee left with an emotionless face. Watching their plan collapse, Sae-ro-yi felt crushed. Dae-hee later called Min-jung to mock her, saying, "You tried to defeat me, you're still inexperienced." She had underestimated the cunning old man. Then he demoted Min-jung to a minor branch, leaving her completely broken.
Only hope remained in Sae-ro-yi's endless battle. The following day, the trial began, and Geun-won, the man who had killed Sae-ro-yi's father, was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Yet Chairman Jang stayed calm and comfortable, because to him, the company meant everything. After the hearing, Sae-ro-yi went straight to his father's grave. It had taken 11 long years to catch the person who had hurt his father and make him pay. He poured a glass of wine for his father, just like they once did together, but the taste was still as bitter as the pain he had carried since his father's death. Back at DanBam, Kun-soo decided to resign. With his brother imprisoned, he planned to return home and claim his inheritance. Yi-seo had once told him she would give him a chance if he ever managed to take control of Jangga. Meanwhile, Soo-ah went to tell Geun-won that his father had taken away all his shares, driving him mad with anger. He couldn't believe his father could be that heartless. Soon after, Kun-soo met his father and promised full obedience if he were named Jangga's next heir. He vowed to make the company stronger than ever. Seeing his son's ambition, Dae-hee felt satisfied and handed work responsibilities to Soo-ah, ordering her to train Kun-soo into the perfect successor. Meanwhile, Hyun-hee, who had recently had plastic surgery, was preparing food for a cooking show. During the process, Tony accidentally used curry powder instead of another spice. Hyun-hee shouted in frustration, but the mistake ended up creating a surprisingly delicious flavor. That dish won first place, giving DanBam a huge boost in reputation. Soon new investors started reaching out, eager to turn DanBam into a full franchise. Yi-seo saw it as a great opportunity and began creating a presentation to define the restaurant's brand identity. But Sae-ro-yi disagreed, saying the timing wasn't right. Yi-seo argued that opening one restaurant at a time would never let them surpass Jangga. Their disagreement turned into a heated argument, though Ho-jin supported Yi-seo's idea, saying her plan made sense. Investors continued calling Yi-seo, warning they would fund other projects if she delayed. Under pressure, she dragged Sae-ro-yi to the rooftop and scolded him for being too cautious. Hearing her passion, he finally agreed to take the leap. Neither realized it was part of Dae-hee's trap. They soon met an investor who praised DanBam's management skills. Sae-ro-yi confidently offered a 5 billion won franchise deal. Though Yi-seo hesitated, the investor accepted right away. The news spread quickly, drawing even more interest. Within a day, they received over 10 billion won in investments, and more than 50 people signed up to open new branches. They opened an office to manage franchising and staff training. One night, as they walked back, they saw an old woman injured on the street and rushed her to the hospital, where they learned she was Tony's grandmother. When Tony showed her a picture of his missing father, she wept and revealed that her son had died years ago in a car accident. Though heartbroken, Tony felt thankful to have found her. The next day was the second round of the cooking competition. Hyun-hee made DanBam's soft tofu stew, while Jangga served fermented soybean stew. Kun-soo, after tasting both, knew Jangga would lose, and he was right. DanBam won again, celebrating their victory as Jangga's team sank in despair. Later, Sae-ro-yi invited Soo-ah and Yi-seo to drink with him. Soo-ah linked her arm with his, and Yi-seo, jealous, stepped between them. They played truth or dare, and Yi-seo went first. Kun-soo asked her if she would love him if he took over Jangga, and remembering her promise, she reluctantly said yes. When it was Sae-ro-yi's turn, someone asked about his feelings for Soo-ah, and he admitted that he liked her, shocking everyone and breaking Yi-seo's heart. Kun-soo then asked what he thought of Yi-seo. and Sae-ro-yi coldly replied that she was like a younger sister. Hearing that, Yi-seo broke into tears, realizing all her sacrifices had been for nothing. Overwhelmed, she ran into the snowy street, crying uncontrollably. Hyun-yi urged Sae-ro-yi to follow her. Yi-seo shouted through tears that she loved him, that she had given up school and even her mother for him, but Sae-ro-yi harshly rejected her feelings. Humiliated and heartbroken, Yi-seo walked away, sobbing in the freezing night. Back at Jangga, Dae-hee was furious about losing twice. He warned that if they lost the final round, Kun-soo would lose his chance to inherit the company. Determined to win, Kun-soo begged to control the last round and promised victory. After the contest, DanBam became even busier, but Yi-seo chose to take a break, hoping Sae-ro-yi would reflect on his feelings. When Kun-soo heard that she had quit, he told his father, who immediately saw it as a perfect chance to strike. The next morning, when Sae-ro-yi reached the office, it was completely empty. All the investors had withdrawn. Panic spread as they realized the company had lost over $1 billion on the campaign. The investor had secretly been working for Dae-hee. Furious investors stormed in, demanding repayment for their failed franchise branches.
Acting under Dae-hee's orders, Soo-ah sent a flower vase with a note saying, "Congrats, Sae-ro-yi, you're back to square one." Enraged, Sae-ro-yi shouted, but he faced the investors and declared, "If you want to cancel, I'll repay everyone. But remember, business is built on trust. Please trust me once again." His courage calmed them, but now he had to find a real solution. Soo-ah urged him to run away with her and start over, while Yi-seo called him, refusing to give up. She promised to stand beside him until the end, reigniting his determination. The next day, Yi-seo returned to work, and their top goal became finding a new investor. Among the prospects was a 70-year-old real estate tycoon, Tony's grandmother, once an ally of Dae-hee. She came with Min-jung to visit DanBam and asked if they needed help. Stubborn as ever, Sae-ro-yi refused, saying he didn't want to beg. The old woman scolded him for letting pride blind him and stormed out, with Min-jung following in disappointment. That night, Sae-ro-yi watched his exhausted team working hard despite everything and realized how much they had suffered because of his pride. Feeling guilty, he called Tony to arrange a meeting with his grandmother. Tony said she was in Jeju Island. When Sae-ro-yi called, the grandmother grabbed the phone, called him a fool, but still offered to invest, on one condition. They had to win the final round of the best restaurant contest. Sae-ro-yi promised he would. But Gun-soo was just as desperate to win, believing that victory would make him the next heir. Knowing that DanBam's strength came from Hyun-yi, he and Soo-ah plotted to expose her as transgender to ruin her image. The following day, as Sae-ro-yi and Hyun-yi arrived at the competition, the news of Hyun-yi's gender spread online and the crowd whispered non-stop. Feeling humiliated, Hyun-yi ran away crying. Even Soo-ah was disgusted by how cruel Gun-soo had become. Hiding in the restroom, Hyun-yi wept until Sae-ro-yi found her and gently said, "If you quit now, they'll just crush you harder. Win this, for yourself and for everyone who's been hurt like you." His words gave her strength. The judges were about to start without DanBam when Hyun-yi returned, standing tall and proud. The competition resumed, and she cooked a masterpiece. When the judges announced the winner, it was Hyun-yi. DanBam had triumphed. Dae-hee, hearing of his son's actions, didn't punish him. Instead, he praised him, saying ruthless ambition was what an heir needed. Yi-seo confronted Gun-soo, slapped him, and begged him to wake up, but he had already gone too far, consumed by power and obsession. Disheartened, Yi-seo ran back to Sae-ro-yi, realizing he was the only one who could truly make her happy. After their big win, DanBam signed an investment deal with Tony's grandmother. This time, Sae-ro-yi was determined to expand globally. News of DanBam's 30 billion won investment shocked everyone, especially Jangga. Furious, Gun-soo demanded to know why Soo-ah failed to stop Sae-ro-yi. Seeing his son's burning ambition, Dae-hee finally made it official. Gun-soo would inherit Jangga. During the board meeting, he publicly named him the next leader. The headlines spread fast, and in prison, Geun-won read the news with fury, his eyes filled with hatred. He began training with desperation, determined to come back stronger someday. 4 years later, IC had expanded massively under Sae-ro-yi's leadership, and Yi-seo had grown more confident than ever. Sae-ro-yi now served as general director, supervising dozens of smaller companies. During a major meeting, several executives discussed difficult issues until Yi-seo calmly cut through the confusion with a few sharp insights, earning everyone's respect. Around the same time, Gun-soo returned from 4 years abroad and stood before the board to present an ambitious plan. Buy low-value land, develop it like Itaewon, raise its worth, and sell for a large profit. Dae-hee was impressed and immediately approved the plan, assigning Gun-soo the mission to defeat IC and secure his position as Jangga's next heir. Meanwhile, Geun-won was released from prison and Dae-hee's health began to fail. He suffered dizzy spells and fainting fits, and doctors revealed he had terminal pancreatic cancer. The ruthless Gun-soo secretly wished his father would die soon so he could inherit the company faster. After being freed, Geun-won visited his father, calmer after years in prison. Gun-soo pressured Dae-hee to name an heir, believing victory was his, but Geun-won refused to back down, claiming he had learned all of his father's principles, and that Jangga rightfully belonged to him. One night, Sae-ro-yi was having dinner with Soo-ah when Ho-jin urgently called. Sae-ro-yi rushed out and Ho-jin scolded him for dating the enemy's director, asking if he had forgotten his father's death. He warned that Geun-won was now free and Dae-hee had only months left. Shocked, Sae-ro-yi called Dae-hee, saying, "I don't want you to die yet. Stay alive long enough to compete with me." Dae-hee laughed. Strangely, his fiercest rival was the only one wishing him a longer life. Later, Sae-ro-yi returned to the office and found Yi-seo asleep at her desk. He gently laid his jacket over her, and she stirred, touched by the gesture. The next morning, IC executives discussed Jangga's succession possibility. If Gun-soo became chairman, IC would be in danger. Yi-seo proposed removing him as CEO and appointing herself since she held shares. Everyone agreed. After the meeting, Soo-ah invited Sae-ro-yi to dinner, but he declined, saying he was busy. Yi-seo made a teasing, jealous remark, and Sae-ro-yi snapped that he didn't see her as a woman. The words hurt her deeply. Though he felt guilty, he stayed silent, but Yi-seo sensed his feelings were beginning to change. Dae-hee learned about their plan and prepared a counterattack. Yi-seo tirelessly met with Jangga shareholders every day, persuading them to support IC, working until she got a nosebleed from exhaustion. While she fought behind the scenes, Sae-ro-yi met Soo-ah, who asked if he still liked her. Just then, Yi-seo walked in and saw them together. Crushed, she ran away. Sae-ro-yi tried to follow, but Soo-ah held him back, and by the time he escaped, Yi-seo had gone home to her mother. The next morning, Jangga's shareholder meeting began, but Yi-seo, sick and exhausted, fainted before attending. Without her presence, the motion to make her CEO failed and Dae-hee's side won. Ignoring the defeat, Sae-ro-yi hurried to the hospital. Even weak, Yi-seo began planning again. Seeing her push herself too far, he told her to rest or he'd fire her, then walked away.
Later, Sung-kwan confronted him, saying he was blind for chasing the wrong woman, and his words finally made Sae-ro-yi realize the truth.
He bought the necklace Yi-seo had admired, but when he reached her room, he couldn't bring himself to give it. Meanwhile, Geun-won met a gang leader and handed him a bag of money to attack Sae-ro-yi's team. While taking over Yi-seo's duties,
Sae-ro-yi found her notebook and saw a drawing of himself. At that moment, it finally clicked. He finally understood her love and realized he felt the same.
He ran to the hospital to confess, while Yi-seo, who had just discovered the necklace, smiled knowingly. Suddenly, a fake doctor entered her room claiming he needed to give her an injection. Moments later, Sae-ro-yi arrived to find the room trashed. His phone buzzed. It was a photo of Yi-seo tied up and a message telling him to come alone. He drove off immediately, with Gun-soo secretly following him.
In a remote forest, Geun-won ordered his men to hit Gun-soo with car.
Sae-ro-yi jumped to push him away and fell down a steep hill. Bleeding and weak, he thought of Yi-seo and regretted not confessing sooner. Gun-soo called for an ambulance, but Geun-won sent men to finish the job. Rescuers arrived just in time, rushing Sae-ro-yi to the hospital unconscious. Panic spread. Yi-seo was still missing.
The retired officer checked nearby cameras and confirmed it was a kidnapping. Anonymous texts warned that calling the police would get Yi-seo killed. Inside, Geun-won tortured Yi-seo and Gun-soo, driving his brother to fury. Yi-seo pretended to be terrified but escaped when Geun-won left the room. Yi-seo and Gun-soo tried to flee but were surrounded by the gang. At the hospital, Sae-ro-yi dreamed of meeting his father on a bridge to the afterlife. His father asked him to cross over, but Sae-ro-yi said he couldn't. He still owed Yi-seo too much. He stepped back and woke up in tears, missing his father deeply. Meanwhile, Geun-won called Dae-hee, blaming him for everything and swearing revenge on both Sae-ro-yi and his own father. He demanded that Dae-hee come personally to free the hostages. Dae-hee nearly collapsed under the weight of his karma. Back at the hideout, Geun-won was ambushed by Geun-soo. They fought violently. Yi-seo wanted to join in, but Geun-soo stopped her. They escaped only to be trapped again by the gang outside. Despite his injuries, Sae-ro-yi woke up and insisted on rescuing Yi-seo himself. Soo-ah tried to stop him, but he declared his love for Yi-seo and left immediately. He went straight to Dae-hee's house and demanded the hideout's location. Dae-hee refused unless Sae-ro-yi knelt. For Yi-seo's life, Sae-ro-yi swallowed his pride and knelt. Dae-hee laughed bitterly, finally feeling satisfied. Sae-ro-yi stood and said coldly, "You're not my rival anymore. A man who sells his own son's soul to make an enemy kneel doesn't deserve that title." He grabbed the address and ran out. Meanwhile, Yi-seo and Geun-soo were cornered again. Yi-seo grabbed a shovel while Geun-soo picked up an iron bar. She counted to 3, then threw the shovel aside and ran, letting Geun-soo stay behind to fight. Though beaten, he fought courageously. When the boss tried to kill him, Geun-won stopped him. A final spark of humanity. They got into a car and chased Yi-seo across a field. Just as the car raced toward her, Sae-ro-yi's car crashed into it head-on. His car held up, and he stepped out unharmed. Yi-seo ran to him, sobbing with relief as he held her tightly. Then, Geun-won and the boss approached again. Sae-ro-yi stepped forward and begged the boss, reminding him of their shared past, asking him to walk away.
Geun-won didn't retreat like they'd hoped, and seeing that, Sung-won chose to stay behind to fight while the others escaped. He fought off the henchmen bravely, leaving only the boss standing.
Geun-won jumped into the car to chase Sae-ro-yi. After running for a while, Sae-ro-yi, hurt and tired, stopped and confessed his love to Yi-seo. As they hugged in the middle of the road, Geun-won sped straight toward them. Enraged, Sae-ro-yi picked up a brick and hurled it, stopping the car. He told Yi-seo to run and call the police while he faced Geun-won alone. Years in prison had hardened Geun-won, and the exhausted Sae-ro-yi was beaten badly. Meanwhile, Soo-ah overpowered the gang and spared their lives, hoping they'd change. On the road, Sae-ro-yi, nearly defeated, found strength again thinking of Yi-seo. He stood up, making Geun-won hesitate in reluctant respect. With his last bit of energy, he defeated him and collapsed from exhaustion. Just then, Yi-seo returned with the police and they embraced tightly in relief. The next morning, Soo-ah submitted all evidence of Jangga's crimes to the police. Dae-hee's mansion was raided and Jangga's executives were charged with bribery and embezzlement. Dae-hee wanted to take full responsibility since he was dying anyway, but his secretary reported that partner restaurants were canceling contracts, threatening bankruptcy. Desperate, Dae-hee begged for help but found none. Only Sae-ro-yi could save him now. Geun-won was sentenced again, this time to life in prison for kidnapping and attempted murder. When Sae-ro-yi woke in the hospital, he immediately hugged Yi-seo. Her mother scolded him angrily, but when he softly said, "I'm sorry," her heart melted. Yi-seo was overjoyed. They left the hospital together, at last, at peace. Later, Dae-hee arrived at the restaurant and Sae-ro-yi personally cooked and served him. The meal moved the old man, making him realize Sae-ro-yi's talent and strength. Sae-ro-yi calmly told him that he would merge Jangga into IC and retire the Jangga name forever. With a heavy heart, Dae-hee stood, then knelt, sincerely apologizing to Sae-ro-yi for everything he had done. Though Sae-ro-yi had dreamed of seeing him kneel, he felt no joy, only compassion. He forgave the man, though the merger would still proceed. In the end, 2 men who had started from nothing built great empires, but only one succeeded because he had heart. The merger meeting was held, and Sae-ro-yi naturally became the new president with full shareholder support. After being saved by Sae-ro-yi, Geun-soo gave up his greed and chose a new path in life. Sae-ro-yi, once a poor young man who lost everything, his father, his freedom, his youth, had finally found love and success through his kindness and perseverance. He and Yi-seo spent a joyful day together, and at last he took her hand and kissed her deeply. Together, they lived a peaceful, happy life.
That's all for today. If you have a K-drama or movie you'd like me to recap, please leave your suggestion in the comments.